Today we are finally starting the final season of Teen Titans, the season of the show that I'm the least familiar with, which is probably going to surprise a lot of you because based on some of the stupid things I've said in previous reviews, I'm pretty unfamiliar with the show as a whole, or I was before I started watching it for these reviews. That said, and keeping in mind, I don't know if this is actually true, but I always felt like this season of the show was just grossly unpromoted compared to the rest of it. Like I didn't even know that a new season was airing when this season first started until several episodes in, and didn't catch this season premiere until I think after the season had finished airing in reruns. I could be wrong about that. I'm not 100% sure. But I think that's right. And frankly, considering the nature of this season, at least as far as I remember it, missing this, it's 2 episodes, but I'm calling it one because it's 1 episode. Missing this premiere episode doesn't like kill your ability to enjoy the season as a whole. Like, this season definitely has an arc to it, but it's more an arc for the whole team, like an arc for the show itself, and it's handled very episodically for the most part. And that arc being primarily the realization of just how powerful the concept of found family it can be. The entire season is a metaphor for the power of found family. Specifically, found family as a means to find yourself as you move on from an unhealthy family dynamic. And as a setup for that, this premiere is really, really freaking good. And I like their use of the Doom Patrol here as that dysfunctional, unhealthy prior family. Because while I love the Doom Patrol, I haven't read enough of their stuff yet, but I watched the show, and I like the Doom Patrol as a concept, and I like the characters a lot. While I like them, they have always very much been a dysfunctional family with a lot of flawed people in it. And like, this doesn't feel like a one-to-one version of any iteration of the team. In fact, the characters feel like they've been bent a little bit to fit into the mold that was required to tell this specific story. But the Doom Patrol still works here, because that is fundamentally their thing. And they also have this cool, sort of old-fashioned B-movie kind of aesthetic to them and their villains. Like, Robot Man isn't a cyborg. He doesn't have any high-tech looking tech on him. He's a clunky kind of robot like you might see from a movie from like the 50s or something. And Mento, who's the leader of the team in this iteration, has like literal antennae on his helmet because he has mind powers. So of course he has antennae on his helmet. And their villain is a brain in a jar with like a gorilla sidekick. They've always had this kind of the Silver Age but taken seriously kind of vibe to them, and they have that here too, to a lesser degree than some of the stuff I've seen from them elsewhere. But it's here, and it works super well for the metaphor of the past generation having to hand things down to the future generation, which has potential to do infinitely more good than they do. And the specific plot of this one is that an old enemy of the Doom Patrol that was active back when Beast Boy was on the team returns, and now Beast Boy and the Titans have to team up with them to stop it. We get a flashback at the beginning that shows Beast Boy with the Doom Patrol when he was younger, when he was still learning to use his powers, failing to destroy a machine that the villains, the Brotherhood of Evil, had created, a black hole machine, basically, which is very B-movie sci-fi, and I absolutely love it. But he sacrifices the opportunity to destroy the machine in favor of saving the Doom Patrol, which he sees as his family, and is scolded for it. Because all throughout this, up until the very end, the Doom Patrol has a very interesting approach. They take a very interesting approach to teamwork. Each of them has a role on the team. The roles overlap a little bit, but they have their roles on the team. But they execute those roles almost entirely separately. Like they're waiting their turn. And I understand the point of that. The idea is that they're supposed to be able to handle their role. That's the entire reason why they're on the team. And acting mostly independently like that allows Mento to direct them more easily. But it contrasts so interestingly with whenever we see the Titans fight in this pair of episodes. Like, I've complained before that sometimes the Titans all seem to be like equally capable, regardless of what job they're taking on. But here they do a really good job of showing that the Titans have different roles on the team. they don't really call attention to it, but it's shown off through the action in the episode. It's just something you can pick up on as things are happening. But they still work together. They're still a unit. Like, there's this really memorable scene in one of the fights where I think it was Robin was retreating from an enemy, and then Raven comes up through the floor in front of him, but then she, like, unfurls her cloak, and Cyborg jumps out to then rush in and attack the villain who was attacking Robin. It was a really good showing for how these characters and their powers can work for utility, but also how they can work together as a unit. They do a really cool thing with the Doom Patrol's costumes here. One of the things of interest about the Teen Titans cartoon is some of the characters were redesigned so that none of them would really have much overlap in the kinds of colors associated with them through their appearance. And one of the ways they avoided that was redesigning Beast Boy's costume so that it was black and purple rather than any of the colors that's ever been in the comics. And bringing in the Doom Patrol, which also makes sense because he was on the Doom Patrol for a while in the comics, that gave them an opportunity to give the Doom Patrol a set of matching but still contrasting purple and black costumes, so we can see where he got his costume from in this reality, but also kind of unifying them and solidifying them as a team just at a glance. And looking at them versus the Titans, you might assume that they work better as a unit because they're so uniform. So it's a really neat contrast when you see the Titans working so much better together than the Doom Patrol ever really do, again, up until right at the very end. It's all masterfully handled, right down to the fact that the makeup of the Doom Patrol here is very much meant to parallel the Titans themselves. You have Mento, who's the intelligent leader, but even though he's not, like, physically incapable, he mostly uses his mind powers to do stuff, which is a contrast to Robin, who is intelligent and good at coordinating things, but is very much a physical threat. Then you have Robot Man, who is sort of a simpler prototype version of Cyborg. In fact, they even call that out. They call him sort of a prototype for Cyborg in the episode itself. A Negative Man with the shadow thing that he can expel and then send it flying around is very much like Raven with her soul self. And Elastigirl, who can grow and become very physically powerful, but is also sort of the emotional core of the group, very much resembles Starfire in the fact that she can often be the emotional core of the group, but is still a massive physical threat. In fact, in a lot of ways, they feel like the Titans, like they're all prototypes of the Titans. They're all the Titans stripped down to one or maybe two base elements that make them powerful. And not only do these similarities really work for, at the end, when the Doom Patrol starts working better as a unit and working as a unit with the Titans themselves, because it makes sense that the Titans would already know how to fight alongside people with these abilities, but it perpetuates that idea that this is the previous generation passing things down to the next generation, that we've moved from generation to generation. This is a generational story. In fact, the very end of the episode, when the Brain, the leader of the Brotherhood, calls in a bunch of younger villains who've already clashed with the Titans, except I didn't recognize a few. I think some of them were just like references to comic villains. I'm not sure. He calls in a bunch of younger villains, most of whom we've already seen, if not all, to fill in their ranks. He recognizes this. He recognizes the danger that the next generation poses and plans to take it seriously. And the whole mentality that Mento has, that each person should have their role that they fill, and they should fulfill that role alone because that's what they should be able to do on their team. Like, on paper, that doesn't feel like a terrible way to lead a team. Each member of the team should be independently capable of doing the things that they're best at doing. That does make sense. But there's a difference in superhero stuff and in general, but we're talking about superhero stuff specifically. So in superhero stuff, there's a difference between a bunch of superheroes doing superhero stuff at the same time and a bunch of superheroes superheroing together. Well, my dog is getting a drink. I don't know if you can hear that. Like, there's no point in a bunch of superheroes forming a team unless they're gonna do some actual teamwork. Like say what you want about the MCU. The first, and about Joss Whedon, who directed the first Avengers movie. The first Avengers movie got this really well. The characters still do their individual stuff. They do the individual things that they're best at, but like in that final fight they all come together and they're complementing each other. It works super well. Contrast that with something like Joss Whedon's cut of the Justice League movie, for example, where mostly it's just the heroes acting separately but at the same time. The Doom Patrol is very much Justice League, whereas the Titans are very much the Avengers. And there's some genuinely horrifying imagery in this, which fits with the fact that the Doom Patrol is here. Like, a Robot Man shut down and probably slowly dying because his robot body is also like his like keep my brain alive suit, right? Strung up in a tree with a message on him, like a beware trespassers message. That's horrifying. That's some horrifying shit. And seeing the other members of the Doom Patrol after they've been captured by the Brain in their own like unique containment pods, where Negative Man and the Shadow Thing, I don't remember what it's called, separated from one another when like that's like genuinely harmful to them. Aren't they supposed to be separate beings? I thought they were supposed to be separate beings, but this treats them like they're one being. Was that a thing at one point in the comics that they were just one being? I don't know. I haven't read enough Doom Patrol stuff. Really want to though. If you have any good Doom Patrol Rex, send them my way. And Elastigirl being like a bubble that will shrink and crush her when it's finally time to do away with her. It's just, the Brain is very cruel. Like, he keeps them imprisoned for 5 months to watch him enact his plan. And then, like, and then he plans to, like, kill them one by one. It's really messed up stuff. And you guys know how I like that horror stuff, that, like, the horror of it's more, like, environmental, or it's, like implied stuff. They don't, like, go, oh, hey, this is horrifying, right? So it's the kind of stuff that the worst of it's gonna slip under the radar for young kids. So it's got that kid-friendly horror vibe going for it. And then once the two teams do team up for the first time, we have a really neat parallel to the flashback at the very beginning, where Beast Boy has the opportunity to make the right choice, as Mento would put it, and again, stop the machine from being completed. And all he would have to do is let everyone else die. And again, he chooses everyone else, which I would argue, even more so here than the first time, is the right decision. Because they're a team for a reason. Like I said before, that's the entire point of having a team. A team is not just one person. Like, in order to stop the machine from being completed that second time, he would have had to have gone after a major physical threat entirely on his own. And like, yes, we know this is someone he can handle, but we don't know that he can handle him every single time. The right call was to free everyone else so they could regroup and continue the fight later. And he makes the right call again later when he calls the Titans for help, despite the fact that Mento doesn't want him to, because he genuinely believes that they can be of use, that they are worth having with you in a situation like this. If anything, my only criticism of this is that as the story progresses and each of the other Doom Patrol members have seemingly died, like, we think that 3 of the 4, or I guess technically 5, because Beast Boy, 3 of the members, we think they're dead for a little while here. Or at the very least, we think they could be. But after that starts to happen, and it's down to just Mento and Beast Boy, I do think Mento comes around a little quickly. Beast Boy confronts him, and it seems like this is the first time he's ever stood up to Mento before. Because Mento is very much that strict, controlling father figure type, right? So this would be a big moment for Beast Boy, finally standing up to someone like that, rather than just walking away and ignoring them, as it seems he's been doing up to this point. But rather than being confrontational, as I imagine an actual strict, controlling father would be in this situation, Mento backs down after a relatively short amount of time and starts listening to Beast Boy. But the reason this works, the reason this doesn't necessarily feel like it comes about too quickly, is because at the end of the day, Mento is not a strict, controlling father character. At least not entirely. He's also a superhero. And those were his friends and teammates, and also, in their own way, his found family. It's a very different kind of family with a very different kind of dynamic than the found family that is the Titans, but that's still his family, and it still hurts him that they've all seemingly died. Combine that with the fact that the Titans have apparently been doing something right, because despite the fact that they're just kids, they haven't all been stomped on and killed by some giant monster or something. I think that's enough that he might listen to Beast Boy and let Beast Boy take charge a little bit like he does towards the end of the episode. And immediately it's like night and day. You can see these people do actually work pretty well as a team. They're able to complement each other pretty well, and they might have even succeeded without the Titans. But the Titans in the end do show up, and we find out that they managed to meet up with the other Doom Patrol members, either meeting up with them after the Doom Patrol members just straight up survived what seemed to have killed them, or maybe even rescuing them. We don't really know. And from that point forward, it's basically a curb stomp. Like the heroes still run into a couple of problems from there, but the villains didn't really stand a chance of salvaging the situation at that point. And in the end, it seems like Beast Boy is not going to have to continue to cut himself off from his family, that they're going to be able to change and grow, Mento in particular, and that he's going to be able to, would reconcile be the right word, I don't know. It seems like maybe he's going to be able to forge a better relationship with them going forward. These are just, they're very good episodes. This is a very good start to the season. I kind of half wish that the stuff with Mento had been carried through the rest of the season, that he had undergone an arc as the season progressed and hadn't come around so quickly. Maybe he had been more begrudging about it at first or something. And maybe they'll eventually spin it that that's what happened later and do that later in the season, but I don't think they do, based on what I remember of it. But again, I also understand why he might have come around as quickly as he did, so it doesn't really matter. And at the end of the day, this season, I do expect it to feel kind of uneven, if that makes sense, because this is technically a postscript season. And the people working on Teen Titans did not know they were getting this season until relatively soon before it had to be produced. And even then, there was stuff that they had to scrap. They thought they were getting 20 episodes, and they only got 13. And 12, technically, because the last episode feels completely disjointed from the rest. There are, at least from what I've been able to read, entire plots that were completely dropped because they just didn't have the space to execute them. And considering how little time they seemingly had to put this together, I am extremely impressed with what they did here. This episode could have felt entirely irrelevant after the Titans literally saved all of our dimension from ruin last time, but it doesn't. It still feels important. There's real weight to it, and especially with that villain lineup at the end, the Brotherhood cements themselves as a legitimate threat instantly. And remember, the last guy the Titans fought was literally like a demon god from another dimension. I know there are other people like me who haven't really taken the time to go out of their way and experience this season before, and I definitely think they should. Just based on this premiere episode, I have really high hopes for this one going forward. I'm going to keep in mind that production had to be a little rushed, that it might feel a little uneven here or there, but I'm still expecting really good things from it. All that said, though, what do you think of, I think these were called Homecoming Part 1 and 2. What did you think of Homecoming Part 1 and 2 if you have seen them? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. And while you're down there, please like the video and share it with anyone else who you think might enjoy my content. Subscribe if you haven't. I'm really trying to get myself out there, and I'd appreciate it if you guys could help. You can check out my social medias. Links to those will be in the video description. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later. My wrist just totally cracked.